Hey, it's Chris back at you with another video, and today I want to talk about why American film studios really can't make good anime movies. So in America, obviously nowadays we live in a comic book renaissance. Comic books are adapted into movies and TV shows all the time. And the question I want to ask is, how come the same really hasn't happened for anime? We've had a few live action anime movies here and there, but most of them have been ranged from meh to bad. So I'm going to explain why I think a lot of live action anime movies haven't worked yet. For this case study, I'm mainly talking about American studios. I know in Japan they've done some live action anime movies and some have been okay and some have been bad, but I'm sticking straight to America. And as a case study, I'm going to use everybody's favorite anime live action abomination, Dragon Ball Evolution. So anime, at the end of the day, is just a different medium than feature films. And when you try to move something from one medium to another, you run into a lot of problems. So the first thing that's really difficult, I think, for movies to do from anime is pacing. So if you're a fan of anime, animes tend to be paced very, very slowly. You watch something like Dragon Ball Z, a fight between two characters may last 5 episodes. A fight between two characters may last, 3 hours. Now obviously in the shows, they tend to have like other things cut in the fight, like other characters talking or flashbacks or things of that nature, but things in anime tend to be very long and very drawn out, as opposed to American movies, TV shows, and even comic books, which tend to be very fast paced. If you read an American comic book, a fight between, Batman and the Joker may only last a few pages, while if you're reading a manga, the fight between Goku and Frieza may last 15 chapters, so the equivalent of maybe like 150 pages of just two characters going at it. So American studios have a big challenge when adapting anime into live action movies, because part of the magic of anime is these kind of long drawn out fights and character interactions that you don't get in that movie. Another thing you have to realize is that anime, compared to say American comics, really hasn't been around for all that long. So say a character like Spider-Man has been around for decades. So when someone goes to direct a Spider-Man movie, most people, not just the writers and directors, but everyone working on the film, almost knows the essence of that character. Even if you're not a big Spider-Man fan, most people have an idea of who the character is, what kind of person he is, how his stories are set up. Okay, he's this everyman who goes around saving people and fighting bad guys. This is opposed to anime characters where Dragon Ball, for instance, had only been around since the 90s, so about 20 years or so before Dragon Ball Evolution was made. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of the writers and directors who, they were able to be put at the helm of working on this movie, they may have read through Dragon Ball, they may have watched Dragon Ball, they may have had an idea of what it is, but Dragon Ball hasn't really been around enough for Americans to really understand the essence of the story and the character. A lot of American writers and directors don't understand the essence of a lot of anime characters because they didn't grow up with these franchises, because these franchises haven't been long enough for them to really grow up with. This is as opposed to American superheroes where characters like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, folks have a general idea of who those characters are just because, they've been around since the 40s, 50s, 60s, etc. Some things that work very well in animation don't work well in live action. So a lot of why people like anime is the look and feel of the shows, okay? Characters, they have exaggerated bodies, exaggerated facial expressions, they're able to do amazing things. Different anime shows have characters that, blow up planets and warp reality and do all these crazy things that are very easy to kind of pull off in an animated show, but much harder and much more expensive when it comes to live action. So comparing Dragon Ball Evolution to the Dragon Ball anime is pretty much no comparison. Because the thing about the Dragon Ball anime, in the Dragon Ball show, you get to see all these crazy fight scenes with characters moving at light speed and characters shooting laser beams and all this craziness. While in the live action movie, you don't really get any of that because in live action, it will be either really expensive or almost impossible to pull off. You can't have real people mimic cartoons, because cartoons in essence are meant to be unrealistic. That's why people like them. So in essence, it's very hard for live action actors to emulate the crazy things you can do in animation. Another reason a lot of these properties haven't been successful is the fact that a lot of American studios and production companies are afraid of having a property that looks too foreign or too Japanese. So anime is made in Japan, thus it's going to have references to Japanese culture all over. And when they want to adapt it into English, a lot of American studios are afraid that if a show looks too foreign or too quote-unquote ethnic, it's not going to be able to bring in mainstream audiences. So what they tend to do is that they tend to try to Americanize it in ways, but when they do that, it ends up taking away what made a show good in the first place. So for instance, in the original Dragon Ball, essentially Goku is this little boy, he lives in the mountains, he hasn't been around humans really, and he's essentially a country bumpkin. While in the movie Dragon Ball Evolution, they made him like a Peter Parker type who's in high school, he's a teenager, and he lives in America. And the reason this really doesn't work is because by changing Goku from this confident guy who's, you know, kind of a weirdo to just sort of like your average Joe, it essentially just changes the character and makes him unrecognizable. So of course people aren't gonna like this change. A lot of studios think that by making anime properties seem more American, that will bring in more mainstream audiences, but it actually does the reverse. It actually turns off people who be interested in it because they see it as America trying to ruin Japanese culture, they're trying to whitewash properties, and they're trying to take away what made anime and manga properties popular and cool in the first place by just making it something different. So we've seen some anime properties be turned into movies over the years. You know, Dragon Ball Evolution is infamous as being really bad, and that's gonna be my main example of why live action anime movies suck. But we've also had recent things like Ghost in the Shell, which, disclaimer, I haven't seen, so I'm really not gonna talk about that movie too much, even though I heard it was not very good. And we even had things like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which was created in America and is essentially an American cartoon that was inspired by anime, but the live action movie was still really bad. There's supposed to be a live action Death Note movie coming out on Netflix pretty soon. It'll be interesting to see if studios have learned their lesson, but looking at the trailer, probably not. So we'll see how it goes. So that's my opinion about why live action anime movies haven't really been good as compared to comic book movies that have completely taken over Hollywood. In conclusion, I really just think it comes to the fact that a lot of these studios don't really get anime, they don't get why people like it, and they don't understand what makes the medium different than other mediums of storytelling. So I'm hoping that studios get a better grasp at why their live action anime properties have failed so far, and hopefully they can actually try to create something decent, you know, even put a new creative spin on some awesome Japanese properties, because, disclaimer, I love anime, there's tons of great shows and tons of good ideas that could be turned into awesome movies over here in the States. So that's just my opinion. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. What do you think it would take for America to start making good live action anime movies? And until then, I will catch you all later. Peace.